All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is your host, Christian Mott, and of course, I'm joined with my good old pal, Chance Henderson, and welcome back to the MC Show. Of course, this episode in particular is going to be a very exciting one indeed. Definitely a long-awaited one for sure. But before we get into it, of course, Chance, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. I got released out of my class early just so I could come and do this with you, so I'm feeling pretty excited.
See, pure dedication from our boy Chance, which unfortunately, to make the announcement, Chance is going on a little bit of a hiatus. So I'll either be soloing it or the show will go on a bit of a hiatus for a bit. But until then, this episode's going up and we're gonna have a good time with it for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would hate to leave you guys, but I just gotta leave for a while. Perhaps someday I will return.
Hopefully, goodness, we need a Chance here. Chance, give us a chance. Oh goodness, what a start. Anyways, this show, I'm building up the suspense here, so hear me out. This show is definitely, I would say, one of the biggest factors in my childhood for sure. This show that we're going to be talking about today is one that none of you would shut up about, honestly. Like, the amount of emails, messages I've gotten for almost a year now, saying I need to talk about this show. This is the exact kind of show that we know you like, and this and that, and of course, then Chance's excitement to do this show, and we're finally getting around to it. I'm gonna let you do the big reveal.
Yeah, so apparently it was exciting enough that Cartoon Network wanted to do a reboot of it only 10 years after it got canceled. We're not going to talk about that. Instead, we're going to talk about its origins. We are talking about the early 2000s Teen Titans.
Yeah, Teen Titan Tuesday. Yeah, I know Chance was been wanting to say that, so you know.
Well, it was my idea to say Titan Tuesday, and you butchered that, so why bother now?
Oh, wow. All right. I guess there's just a lot of shade being thrown early in this episode. But yes, we are finally getting around to doing the original Teen Titans that was made by Warner Brothers from 2003 to 2006. All 5 seasons and the movie, by the way. So, yeah, what do you want to dive into to start with this show? Because there's a lot to talk about.
And before we get to the nitty-gritty of it, you want to talk about our Teen Titans themselves, get a look at the characters a bit?
Of course, and this group is definitely a unique group, to say the least, and I think that's what made the show. Before we even get to that point, I think we need to make this very clear. This show is one of the most critically acclaimed cartoons in the last 20 years, and it still holds up today, surprisingly well. And, of course, it helps that you have very, very, very good just have a very good group of characters. Of course, you have the leader in Robin, and I'm almost certain this is a Dick Grayson Robin. You have Starfire, who's kind of the weird one. You have Raven, who is just every single ideal goth girl, really. You have Beast Boy, which is the one I relate to the most, and then you have Cyborg, who is kind of, I don't know what you would call him. He's just your boy. He's just your boy. But anyways, very strong group. Also some very good voice actors that voiced on this show. Of course, I'm going to go right to the big one, which is Tara Strong, of course. And yeah, the performances in the show were really well done, and just the characters themselves are really nicely done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tara Strong, Scott Menville, Hynden Walsh, you might know her as Princess Bubblegum from the Adventure Time series. Like, you can tell that they were pretty excited to actually do this because I feel like they had done animated roles from time and time before this, but this might have been their first opportunity to get into some superhero type of genre because, Tara Strong had done Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls, but to see her go as deep as Raven and get into a complex character, it must have been really something for her.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And something that I think needs to be added to that is this is definitely just a different show in general. Because this is a show that you would call, I think the word is a merit anime or something like that.
Yeah, similar to the style of Avatar The Last Airbender. You can't tell, is it a cartoon? Is it an anime? What is it?
Yeah, and a big reason for that is Glenn Miyamaki, who is a very, 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 very important person in Western animation and just storyboarding and art in general and the means of shows. Really wanted to bring something different. he at this point this is actually the show that got him his Emmy, by the way, which people don't realize. This guy is the reason most of your childhood shows were animated the way they were. Just to throw a few examples, he did Batman Beyond, he did Ben 10, of course he did Teen Titans, just to name a few. And he really brought a more Eastern style approach. He brought something that really had a lot of variety in the means of its animation. And I think that was kind of nice because for a show that's 15 years old, the animation holds up pretty good nowadays.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's especially unique given some of the anime-like characteristics that some of the characters give in funny moments or whatever, and it's like that's pretty unique specifically for a superhero show because you don't really see Batman or like the goofy characters from that series like Joker or Harley giving like those kind of expressions. Like Teen Titans was basically unique for that.
Yeah, Teen Titans in general is unique just because it's a show that covers more adult themes in it, like a kid show, because it still works kind of like your more run-of-the-mill kid show or preteen show, but it handles some pretty heavy topics, and of course we'll talk about certain episodes and whatnot a little later in this episode. But yeah, it definitely, I think one of the first things that comes to my mind when I think Teen Titans is the unique art style for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. The art style for the characters, the art styles for the backgrounds, it's all pretty much an amalgamation of like creativity coming in onto the television screen.
Now, something I will say, and this may sound a little bold, I think this is one of the most aesthetically pleasing cartoons around, and I kind of put cartoons and anime together in that sense. And really, there's been, I think, about 3 or 4 shows that I've ever watched that had a visual aesthetic that was so pleasing. And I would put it in like the same marks as like Cowboy Bebop, where it's just a very nice thing to look at visually, even though both shows are really old.
Well, this was pretty much the style for 2003. You basically had the Teen Titans art style that kind of reflected other cartoons. You had like What's New Scooby-Doo that also had a similar style, and you had like another superhero show, Static Shock, that also had that kind of aesthetic.
Real OGs remember Static Shock for sure. Yeah, no, I really do like its style. It was definitely unique. I think it's one of the reasons that like the when they tried to do the reboot, besides the fact that it was just horrible to begin with, why that before it even really released, that people already kind of closed it down, is because when you see that Teen Titans art, it's so distinctive. There's nothing that I've really seen that copies that style. Really, it really feels like a mix of what would happen if somebody in the anime industry came together with a Western animator, and they just came together with a hybrid product, and that's what it feels like. And it just really it's pleasing to look at.
Yeah, definitely pleasing to look at. Like, it feels like a comic put into motion, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because another film that I know I never got around to doing, and people yelled at me for it, was Into the Spider-Verse. And imagine the same thing except for an episodic series, and it felt really good. And once again, it did a lot considering how limited technology was still at that time, especially with the budget, because people forget Teen Titans actually did not have a big budget, and people forget that. So in order for them to do what they did, especially with 5 seasons and a movie and all that, it really did its job well, for sure.
It must not have done its job well, which explains why we don't have a 6th season yet.
All right, well, listen here. That's a Cartoon Network issue. It's funny that you bring that up, because one of the big reasons this show got discontinued was because Cartoon Network, it's debated on what really happened. Now, the thing is, it seems like it was do you know Symbionic Titan?
Yes, I do.
And I don't know if you know anything about the story about why it didn't get any more seasons or whatnot. If you know. Oh, so what happened was Symbionic Titan, so this is just a little side story context. One of Gennady Tartakovsky's projects, another one of his great shows that he did. But the problem is it didn't get past season 1 because Bandai, who was the big toy conglomerate, for Cartoon Network, was currently in I don't know what you would call it. They were kind of just in like a war with each other.
A feud.
Yeah, I would say a feud. And the problem is because Bandai didn't get the rights for Symbionic Titan, that like, or let's change it this way. because it was actually the Teen Titans that indirectly caused Symbionic Titan to not continue either. Because the problem was when Teen Titans was getting toy products, Bandai wanted to be the ones to, or Cartoon Network wanted Bandai to make them toys, but the problem is Bandai didn't want to make them toys, so Cartoon Network threatened to not advertise their products, and then it became a big old feud, and because of that, the licensing for Teen Titans itself DC kind of pulled back a bit, and that's why, because confirmed by Sam Register, who was, he's one of the big execs at Warner Brothers, one of the big ones who's the head of the Teen Titans project. He pretty much confirmed it. Was like, there's a season 6 script sitting there, but they never used it because the licensing feud between Bandai and Cartoon Network made it to be, and that's actually the same kind of thing that ended up canceling Symbionic Titan too.
See, I almost thought you were going to mention the bomb scare that happened in 2007 that caused a lot of the shows to be pulled from the air, like primarily some of the more violent ones, too.
Yeah, that's another one. Well, it also doesn't help that Season 4 had a big drop in ratings compared to the first 3 seasons. Season 5 kind of bounced back, but the ratings dropped heavily, and, of course, on top of the bomb situation, on top of the Bandai feud, I think they just didn't want to continue with the Season 6, which was a real shame, too, because even the last 2 seasons, which are objectively worse, I think it's safe to say that, still are enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely. If Samurai Jack can come back for a final season, then why can't this show?
Yeah, for real. It really needs a final season for sure. Anyways, with that being said, I think before we dig into this even further, one thing needs to be stated about this show in particular, and that is, of course, the theme song. Exactly, and that's why, once again, I think the hiring and using of Glenn Miyamaki was so important for the show's success, because he had worked with Warner Brothers plenty of times before, but he worked for the Japanese market, so he also was very well adept into creating anime and stuff like that. I don't really have any of his anime projects. I kind of just focused on what he did for Warner Brothers, but to put in perspective, his first job before Warner Brothers was working for Studio Ghibli, so keep that in mind. So with that being said, though, he understood that America needed a way to get introduced to the Eastern style of... I almost blame him for the anime boom to an extent, just because he just knew that people wanted to see something different. We were so used to seeing superheroes portrayed in a certain way, in a certain fashion, that when he went to animate this show and create the soundtrack and whatnot, he went out of his way to bring a lot of Eastern influence into it, because it's something that us here in the West weren't familiar with.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if that was his craft, especially if he'd been doing it for a while, it makes sense that he would want to contribute some of that style of music and audio into something that was primarily without it for so many years, and I think it works really well.
Yeah, and it's one of the absolute catchiest openings, I think, in all of cartoons, or just in general, in all of themes, really. I put it on my Mount Rushmore theme songs, and of course it was done by the Japanese pop rock band Puffy Amayumi,
which coincidentally also had its own Cartoon Network show around the same time as Teen Titans.
Which, by the way, I feel guilty the fact that I didn't really know that was a thing.
It was really low-key. You would have had to, really pay attention to the network. It got taken off after, 2 years.
I'm going to have to look into this after, we're done, because I really want to check it out. But, yeah, they did just an incredible job. And from what I can tell, they were actually the ones that were hired to do the entire soundtrack. From my knowledge, I couldn't find anything about a separate composer or anything. I don't know if you were able to.
Nah, not really. As far as I know, they did the theme song, they did the ending song, I remember specifically the Mad Mod episode, they did a song for that, so I feel like they were involved in a lot of capacities in some way.
Yeah, and their style really works good for what Teen Titans was, because it was kind of that more upbeat. It was different, and that's what I think played into it so well. Of course, that theme song, I could literally sing that whole thing right now. I will not, to save your eardrums, but I might.
Specifically my eardrums, thank you.
Oh, don't worry about him. He'll be okay. But yeah, we could go on forever about every other aspect of the show without actually going into the show itself. So with that being said, Chance, I'm gonna let you take over because I know that's more your forte.
All right, so one thing you talked about earlier, this specific Robin being Dick Grayson, why do you think that is?
Okay, so there's many reasons why it's got to be Dick Grayson. And I'm going to go to, I guess I'll jump into this. My absolute favorite episode in all cartoons. I get asked this a lot. So I always have to create an answer. And a lot of times I don't need to because the answer is immediate. It is season 3, episode 63 of the whole show specifically, called Haunted, which, by the way, is a perfect amalgamation of exactly what this show is all about. It has cover really heavy topics, still can be upbeat and kind of different, and also really shows some insight into just the Titans and how they work together and whatnot, as well as Robin's struggles. And if you watch that episode, when so I guess, I don't know if you'd call this spoilers for the episode. Hopefully you've seen it by now.
It came out in 2003.
Well, that episode, I don't think season 3 came out in 03.
2005?
Might have been. So still, that's a little 15 years ago, pretty much. If you haven't seen it by then, well, you're out of luck on here. But the whole thing is, there's one scene where Raven looks into Robin's mind to see what's going on, and there's a scene where you literally see 2 trapezers falling to their death, which is the exact origin of Dick Grayson. So that makes me theorize that this Robin is Dick Grayson's Robin, and that's really the big smoking gun for me on that one.
See, I completely agree with you because there was another episode, and it was called How Long Is Forever. It was basically seeing Robin's future counterpart, who is Nightwing, which is basically Grayson's identity after he lost the role of Robin. So I think it's definitely plausible that Grayson is this version of Robin.
Oh, easily. So we got Dick Grayson, of course. We got Beast Boy.
Garfield Logan.
Garfield. Gosh. You know what's weird is literally yesterday, because I rewatched almost the entire series the last couple of days just so I can be as fresh as possible. When I heard that, I'm like, man, that's so weird.
That caught you off guard. Did you know his real name was Robin before you watched the series? What am I talking about, Robin? Garfield.
Yeah, I knew his name is Garfield. It just always gets me because you're so used to calling him by one thing that when you actually hear his real name, it's like, ew.
Did he ever turn into a cat?
Did he ever turn into a cat? Not that I know of.
Well, they probably missed a huge funny joke if they missed that opportunity.
That's true. Wait, I think he had one scene where it was like when he was sick, he kept on sneezing. I thought he turned into a cat at one point. I guess not.
I guess we got to rewatch it again.
Oh, goodness. My 7th time watching it? Yeah, I'll go for it. Anyways, then you have Raven, which I see too much of. Now, don't get me wrong. She's a great character, but if you ever go on, like, any angsty girl, like, page, which don't recommend, by the way, they're always gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm so much like Raven, and it's like,
to be fair, she probably was the most emotional character and most relatable to teenage girls back then.
Yeah, and that's another thing. These characters are oddly relatable, and that's something you didn't see in even other iterations of Teen Titans, like the comics and prior things, and of course post things for sure. You never really saw superheroes that were that relatable, and I think that's what also helped us show be so successful, because when you look at like the really popular heroes and the ones that really resonate the most, for example, Spider-Man, the reason they resonate is because they have relatable qualities and traits to us as a normal person.
Yeah, you literally said yourself that Beast Boy is most relatable to you, right?
Oh yeah, I swear, all you need to do is spray paint me green, make me lose a couple 100 pounds, and there you go.
Coincidentally, folks, he's wearing green today.
I am wearing green. Maybe I purposely wore green. No,
he didn't.
No, I didn't. Anyways, yeah, the cast of characters is super strong, and it also has good supporting characters, which I think is helpful.
You mind if I talk about a quick interaction that I really enjoy between Starfire and Cyborg?
Oh, of course.
So, like, I don't really remember the premise of the episode, but it was basically the racist term usually said on Starfire's home planet, truck. Cyborg tried to call her that, thinking it was something positive, but he was quickly corrected, and then he came up with a counterbalance by saying he knows what it's like to go through a life of prejudice, like Starfire asks, "You do?" And he basically says, "Yes, I'm a robot." And that really hit with me because he could have easily said he's African American. He's the only black member of the Titans Tower team. But like the writers, they were really genius to show like the most obvious thing being that he's mostly made of cybernetic parts. And I don't know, I feel like that really resonated with a lot of people trying to avoid the most obvious thing they could have said.
Yeah, and that's something else that was nice because it was actually a very mature show for what it was, but it was also kind of a smart show in that aspect. It kind of understood what lines cross, what ones not, and I do like the fact that they wrote his character in a way where, like, yeah, he's clearly the token minority of this group, but at the same time, it's quite literally never mentioned, ever. It's always the struggle that he's a cyborg, not the color of his skin, which I really did appreciate, which obviously no kid's show would really talk about that stuff to begin with, but with some of the things it does talk about, it wouldn't have been surprising.
Yeah, absolutely, because, there's a lot of dark themes. Like, you can have your comedy and your darkness, and somehow this show found a way to mix a perfect blend. Like, you'd probably have, like, a 2-episode story arc where you'd basically focus on nothing but serious times, but then just go back to comedic antics the next episode.
Yeah, and that's why, once again, I keep bringing up Haunted, but Haunted, like, when I think of this show, of course I think some of the funnier episodes are more light-hearted episodes, like the Mad Mod episode, stuff like that. But Haunted is the episode that makes this show the next level because it really is the episode that resonates with me, and I really don't know how to express my words for this episode. The fact that they were able to talk about such a heavy theme and do it in an appropriate way and do it in a way that still fits within the characters within the universe was so nicely done. Because if you don't know what Haunted is about, for those who haven't seen it, the whole thing is Robin. A lot of things have happened at this point. He actually briefly became Slade's apprentice, which, by the way, let's talk about Slade real quick before we jump into this. I'm going to let you talk about him.
Slade, he was one of the better villains I've ever seen from DC for 2 reasons. One, he really knew how to manipulate his way into the Titans' lives, Robin specifically, because even after, well, you'll talk about it, but like even after that whole event, like he still managed to get inside Robin's head, even though Robin might have believed that he was there when he really wasn't. That was basically a whole fiasco going on, and like I think he was really good at being. He's everything like that era of Joker couldn't be. He was manipulative and he was actually successful.
Yeah, and so before we jump into back into the Haunted, the whole thing with Slade is he's a fascinatingly compelling character just because, first off, Deathstroke as a Batman villain never really gets a lot of sunlight, and to make him the main villain of the Teen Titans was awesome, and to see him interact and be so cool and calm and collected when facing the Titans, and really he breaks down each one of them differently. Of course, he breaks down Robin the most, but we see him clearly. Of course, the things with Raven. A little later on, of course, he messes with Beast Boy, which I feel like you're going to get into that yourself, so I won't talk too much about that.
Yeah, it might be best for you. I don't think I really remember that part.
The whole thing is like, it's when Tara was around.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that or not. But the whole thing is, like, for me, seeing him break down Robin, because the whole thing is he pretty much bribes Robin to become his apprentice because he's going to kill the rest of the crew. And of course, Robin, being the team player he is, goes under and becomes his apprentice and whatnot, and it's all sorts of different things happen building up to this episode. Of course, Slade dies, ? Like, he kind of does. Like, he's dead for a while. But the whole thing is this episode is Robin is having hallucinations of Slade, and the whole thing is like he is so compelled to stop Slade and whatnot, and he's suffering from PTSD, which is not something you ever see talked about really in any media, let alone a kid show. And the way it was handled and how you could see like the rest of the Titans react to what he's doing and their concern and them trying to figure out what they can do to help him, and him trying to figure out what's going on himself. It was really nicely done, and I always go back to watch that episode whenever I want to watch a really good piece of animation or really good animated series.
Yeah, it was a bit jarring to see in like an animated show specifically of this genre because like even with the case of Mysterio from the most recent Spider-Man movie from Marvel, for example, like you know how he could use his hallucinations to get inside Peter's head and basically everybody else's. Like you could say that was easily similar to this Haunted episode, but like I feel like they executed the concept in completely different ways. Like this one went more dark and Mysterio's was basically more manipulative because like Slade wasn't really trying to convince Robin to do anything like in this manipulative state, was he? He was just trying to mess with him.
Yeah, the whole thing is Slade was gone, but the problem was Robin couldn't move on from the memories of Slade and his obsession of trying to catch Slade. And I like how they build it up, too, because it wasn't just that episode. You could see it in the previous episodes. Now, maybe not necessarily the mental wear and tear it had on him, but, like, when you saw any shot of his room, for example, or anything that he was doing on the side, you could secret, like, and this is why I love the attention to detail, why I give Murakami more credit, is he really understood the finer details of a show as well. And if you ever look at some of the previous episodes building up, like you can slowly see in the background and see in certain places like Slade's name appearing more and more and whatnot. And they kind of hinted at this. And I didn't realize it until I actually did this latest watch through. And I think it was excellently done.
Yeah, absolutely, because you have to think, even the show is called Teen Titans, like, you really didn't need to focus on their specific dynamics because you, like you said, you also do have the side characters who do chime in and really bring their A game, and you have the good villains who come in every now and then, but, like, it basically had everything that you would want in a superhero movie, but they extended it for 5 seasons, which is pretty impressive.
Oh, incredibly impressive, considering this is a show that like, this is my thing. Everyone says, like, oh, this is a good show, but no one really knows why it's a good show. But I guess that's why we're kind of explaining. But just so I don't talk about one episode of Teen Titans for 4 hours, Chance, do you have an episode in particular you want to talk about?
Probably the Mad Mod episode, honestly, because I'm going back to the Mysterio comparison. Like, you know, his name is Mad Mod, right?
Mm.
Yeah, so basically his whole thing, British villain, he's also a manipulative villain. Like, he can literally bring people into, like, his area of expertise or whatever and basically mess with their minds. That basically happened for 22 minutes, and this really hilarious chase scene played out, which is specifically why I was talking about Puff Yami earlier, providing the backing track. It was basically like, I don't know, an old 1970s superhero show for me. Like, you would basically see the old Batman and Robin chasing Joker down in the hallway or whatever, and I don't know, that really resonated with me on a cartoon level, per se.
Yeah, I definitely love the Mad Mod episode because he's another one of those fun villains, you know? And that's something that this series has. It has its share of serious villains, like primarily Slade is one of the big ones. But it also has those, like, more goofier ones that you just get a good laugh at, and Mad Mod is definitely a fun one, for sure. Something I do want to touch on, and I really want you to talk about this because this is more your alley, is really how some of these characters develop. And specifically, one of the biggest just kiss already kind of tandems ever in Robin and Starfire. And throughout the whole show, they developed their relationships very naturally and very well.
So here's my thing. I was never really a Robin and Starfire shipper.
Wow.
Well, my primary thing was like, I don't know, I feel like Beast Boy kind of resonated more with Starfire with like their more goofy antics and maybe like, well, you'll probably vouch for me on this specific one, like Robin and Raven, like they had their fair share of moments in the later seasons.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. It's kind of weird how it worked out in the end. And then your boy Cyborg. Well, he doesn't. Does he really?
Jinx.
Yeah, Jew. He does have Jinx. Oh gosh, Dad, that's right. Wait, but I thought Jinx was into like Kid Flash originally, though.
That's true.
So it's like
that's an entirely different discussion. What were we supposed to be talking about?
Oh, I was talking to you about the character developments.
Right. So specifically between Robin and Starfire, like I do understand why a lot of people like it, and I think it's cute for what it is, because like, you know, they started out as friends, and like they really had these whole 5 seasons to develop their feelings for one another and really get a sense of what the other person was all about, and that all came to a climactic conclusion during the movie when they finally did share that kiss that you were encouraging them to be about. And, I feel like this series executed it well because I do want to bash on Teen Titans Go because they really try to up that. Like, Robin is basically this sadistic crush lover boy who would basically do anything, including harming the entire planet just to get with Starfire. So another reason why you probably shouldn't watch that series.
Side note, never watch Teen Titans Go. Just ever. Literally no. Just no. Don't even watch the movie where the OG, quote-unquote, quotation things. Just no. That series doesn't exist. Just think about this one. But anyways, so let's talk about the series as a whole real quick. And before we get into the movie, of course, we'll save the movie for the end. What do you really want to talk about when it comes to this series? What are the things that people must know?
What they must know is probably watch it for the same reasons people would have watched the OG Ben 10. Like, you can come in for the action and the chaos that ensues from said action, but you can also stick around in basically the same ways you'd watch a TV drama. Like, you can get really invested into these characters really quickly from the start, and it makes you more likely to want to learn more about them as the series progresses. And even though we never got that 6th season, like, you can really tell the writers, like, wanted to get all the information that they could out of the way, like, because, with that whole thing with Raven and Trigon basically bringing out all those alternate personality Ravens. You remember that?
Yeah,
part?
Dude, that was a great episode.
Yeah, so, like, stay for the characters, stay for the action, like, don't leave just because it tries to do a mixture of both. If anything, you could probably stay because they try to blend them so well.
Oh, absolutely. And the show is just it really is one of the best cartoons around. And I try not to be biased or subjective or anything, but it just is. Like, of course, you have to be into the superhero thing, but even then, even if you don't know a lot of the knowledge about the superheroes themselves or their origins or any of that, you could still join and watch the show without knowing anything about any of them and find maximum enjoyment because it tells the story correctly. Now, of course, this story, nothing is perfect. So, of course, the big complaint for me was season 5 was just too crazy. Like, if you've ever watched season 5 in particular, there's a reason that I think they stopped there outside of the issues we've already discussed is because, my goodness, you can't, it's the same thing Dragon Ball suffered from at one point. And yes, I am bringing anime into this just because I think it's a fair comparison, is when you raise the stakes, you try to go past the previous stakes you set. After a while, you can't go higher, and then your story becomes flat to an extent. And season 5 was so just over the top and just crazy that I think they understood that they were going on down that progression and couldn't continue that.
Yeah, I have very vivid memories of season 5. I remember watching the first 4 seasons, like, clearly, but, like, the last one I have really vivid memories of because it was kind of all over the place, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just wicked over the top. Like, goodness, the final fight in the series pretty much was just every hero and every villain.
Yeah, was Terra supposed to have been reincarnated in that last episode?
That's what I thought they were doing, but it didn't happen, which, by the way, I kind of appreciate that a little bit because, like, it just shows that, hey, some characters will just stay gone.
Yeah, true. Like, that wasn't really something a lot of shows did back then, really, like, permanently kill characters off.
Yeah, so that's another thing that the show did. It wasn't scared to kill a few characters off permanently, and I really appreciated that.
It's a trend that apparently dies hard in Warner Brothers Animation, as given by Batman's The Killing Joke.
Yeah, that's... yeah.
While we're on the subject, I have a curious question for you. Like, any DC guest star, like, it could have been a hero or a villain. Who would you have liked to see, like, at least make a episode appearance?
An episode appearance? I think it would be fun, right? I would really love to see the Titans have taken on the Clown Prince himself, Joker. I think that would have been so good to see. Even because it would have been interesting to see how Joker would have interacted with specifically Robin, of course, because of the whole Batman thing. But I'd also have loved to have seen how the Titans would have handled him, and if putting Joker in a situation where Batman isn't the one that's going to be able to stop him.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with you. Joker probably would have been a fun one because you never really know what he's going to be doing next. Like, he could literally have a whole building armed with bombs that'll spread laughing gas or whatever, but like another where it's like a paintball fight or something with acidic paint. It's like it probably would have ended up like the Suicide Squad movie in a sense, but like I don't know, I feel like they probably had access to all the characters, but they probably wanted to keep it very limited so you could still separate Robin from Batman, but still not forget his origins.
Yeah, and I think that's why. And I also think they did that because they needed to keep it tame to an extent. You know, if they brought somebody in like the Joker is a character that's almost impossible to write strictly for a kid show. That's why, like, when you look at like Batman Beyond, for example, or the Batman animated series, there's a reason that show's actually rated PG-13 and not just in everyone kind of show, is because there is some blood, there is some violent violence in it, and that's because you can't rate the Joker without having that. That's one of his defining things, is that when he acts out violently.
Did the Joker have guns in the animated series?
Yes, he did. Not a lot. I think he had it. Well, I know in a movie, in the Batman Beyond movie, when it talks about like the Joker's return, they clearly show him with a gun. So he does use it a few times, but he doesn't really use a gun a lot.
Yeah. Well, and all in all, that's all I really have to say about the series. What about you?
Yeah, no, I just think it's a series that if you haven't somehow watched it yet, you need to, and it's one of those ones that if you're just looking for something different, you got to check it out. But of course, let's talk about the Trouble in Tokyo film.
The creme de creme.
It really is the creme de creme, and it came out. Give me 1 second. Came out right after the season 5 ended.
September 15th, 2006.
Yep, which was, I think, a month after the final episode. It was not too far after they did the final episode.
Oh, wow. It literally ended September 15th, 2006. So same day it came out?
Yeah, same day. Huh. Interesting. Well, I know that this movie was kind of like the last hurrah for Teen Titans. It's the last time we've gotten anything really Teen Titans, like actual Teen Titans. But anyways.
Oh, come on. The actual Teen Titans showed up in the most recent movie.
No, they didn't. No, that was not them. No.
Sure, they were just Flash animated, but still.
Not even a Flash animation. Even how they acted. No. You can't tell me the actual OG Teen Titans are going to act like that.
Wrong movie. Let's discuss Trouble in Tokyo.
Yes. Never bring up anything with The Go. I'm just going to call it The Go.
Oh, yeah. What about the comic series that actually had Teen Titans Go? Not the modern characters, but the old ones.
Okay, well, that one's okay. That one's fine. But, I mean,
anything there you go.
Anything animated, okay?
Anything after 2013.
Yeah, anything post-2013 is no-no. Anyways, yeah. So, for starters, this kind of follows the Season 5 trend aspect that the storyline is just bonkers. Would you like to give it a quick summary?
Right, so basically, the Teen Titans' hometown, Jump City, is attacked by a Japanese ninja called Psychotech. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, it's Psychotech.
Yeah, it's basically he was sent by Brushagun before he vanished and triggers the Taros fire sprinklers or whatever. So the gang has to head to Tokyo and find out what the actual full plan is, and a lot of side quests ensue. I don't really remember what Raven, Beast Boy, and Cyborg did. Do you?
They really didn't do that much in this film. No, because remember there was a couple of other assassins and whatnot from Psychotech. They just kind of explored Tokyo. Remember, one of my favorite scenes in just all of Teen Titans is when Beast Boy goes to the Japanese karaoke bar. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And he sings the karaoke just horribly wrong because it's translated just terribly. Which, by the way, I will throw a piece of clip and or audio of that, because that is, you cannot watch this movie without appreciating that scene. It's so much fun. But yeah, no, this movie was this was a Robin and Starfire movie, if you really want to get down to it. It was all about Robin and Starfire finally showing their love interest. Really, it's one of those films where those two are the big ones, but it really has a lot of fun. Now, something that is cool though is this film was oddly dark, and I think that's got to be like stated. This film is, because Teen Titans did deal with some like more mature themes, but like it never did some of the stuff that it did in this movie, and it was kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, definitely not to this extent because, this was basically like if we'd never gotten Teen Titans Go, the series, this would have basically been the last we'd ever seen. So, like, the writers, the directors, they were probably trying to go out with a big bang, like trying to pay off every last storyline that ever happened in the show and basically give the fans what they want for a satisfying conclusion. And that probably included going for somewhat of a darker theme.
And I think that helps because it had David Slack on the pen, and David Slack he did write a lot of the original story for Teen Titans, but he's known for doing some darker stuff. I wouldn't say super dark, but some darker stuff. So I think that helped set the tone for Trouble in Tokyo. But something I want to mention within the story, just because it's the thing that always gets me, is Robin straight up just kill somebody.
Honestly, I would not put it past Dick Grayson because you have to think, if he is going to eventually grow into Nightwing in this universe's canon anyway, it probably wouldn't be too unlikely for him to start.
That's true, but like the whole thing is I'll never forget that scene because he's fighting one of the assassins, and he just straight up like, I think he throws him into a sign or somebody, like a guy like explodes, and it's like, oh my god, they actually did that, and they showed it.
We have to think, like if he's coming off as a mentor from the Dark Knight himself, do you think Batman would have taught him too much about pacifism? Was that really one of his lesson plans?
Well, you have to think that it had to partially be that, because if you remember the movie, like he pretty much goes into hiding. He pretty much runs away from the rest of his crew after that happens because he's now viewed as a murderer. And it's wild. Now, something I do want to bring up in this movie is one character in particular named Daiso, who is the head of Tokyo's defense force, and he is an interesting character. Now, I don't want to jump right into the spoiler about him, but I'm gonna let you talk about it. I'll let you take it.
What wasn't too memorable for me, honestly. Like I remember almost virtually all the other stuff that happened. Like, what was Daiso's big role again?
Daiso was like the plot twist villain. Like his whole thing is like he was the one that was printing psychotech ninjas. Because the whole thing is like he's got this old man who has the ability to like make anything that he like can use, like paints within his body or something, or like his life energy to paint. And that becomes like the psychotech stuff, assassins, and like he straight up, his whole gimmick is like, oh, he's using them so he can give the Tokyo Troopers, which is the name of the force or the supernatural force that the Titans try to work with in this film, a reason to exist. And it's really interesting because he's one of those villains that's like, okay, but why though? But he was kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah, I remember the big battle that happened with the animated ink minions or whatever, and like Daiso literally jumped into the ink reservoir of the press. Like that was pretty epic, wasn't it? Like you normally never see villains taking such a big risk in order to work towards the greater good of their plan or whatever.
Yeah, and something else I really appreciate about this film is that Daiso's character does not come off as the important character until the end, and when he reveals his master plan, it's like one of those light bulb things, right? It's just like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I also love the idea that like when Robin went into hiding and Daiso was chasing him. Do you know what that reminded me of? That reminded me a lot of like Lupin the Third, and I really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, the sequencing, like, not just in the original series, but in this movie, like, there's a lot of good pacing. There's a lot of good movement from the animation, especially. Like, there wasn't too big of a jump of the budget between this media and the show, right?
No. This movie actually had a pretty small budget. It was for a movie anyways. And yeah, they just did a good job with it. But something I will say, this is just kind of off topic, but it's part of the movie, is I blame this movie for the cat girl trend. I swear to God. You don't give me that. You know it. You know it is. Because I'll never get Beast Boy had to fight that damn cat lady. And no, that you can't unsee that.
You're going to have to let that one go.
I can't.
I can already hear a lot of the audience yelling at you.
Oh, I hope they are, because why? Why did that exist in a movie in Japan?
You're asking why a girl was dressing as a bumblebee, and now you're going to this.
Yes. Yes, I am. I'm absolutely.
Yep. Just let it go.
No.
Let it go.
I can't. Anyways. No, I think what was really nice about this movie, though, is what it did with Robin and Starfire, really. It was that, because that was probably obviously that was the big payoff in this film. And I don't know. Let me ask you this, because I thought they did it phenomenally, but I want to ask you, do you think that after all the build-up they did, how they used Starfire and Robin in this movie made that payoff worth it?
The payoff was definitely huge and worth it for a number of reasons. One, they'd been waiting, the fans, they had a chance to wait for it. They had their anticipations built up, and I don't think Warner Brothers really disappointed with the eventual payoff. And lost my train of thought. Since they'd been waiting for it, it gave them a chance to really see how perfect they were for each other, because it wasn't really one was more powerful than the other. It was basically a give and take friendship. They really had time to trust each other before they got to the point where they were ready for a relationship. And I think just from the mere silence of the moment that they had, they didn't really need to say anything. They just had to look in each other's eyes and know that they were right for the moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it was a great payoff, though, because the whole show, it's there, and the tension. Oh, have you ever thought you would see such tension in a freaking kids cartoon over a love interest? Yeah.
Like I said, What's New Scooby-Doo exists, Fred and Daphne.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Well, that one, yeah. Also, side note, of course you'd bring in Scooby-Doo. Of course.
Hey, at least I'm sticking to the right era.
Yeah, you are. You are. For sure. But, yeah, so... Ow. Anyways, so what do you think about this film, really?
Overall, I think it's a great finale. I feel like the story probably could have continued after this, but then again, I don't own the script currently, so I don't see how it could have happened. But I think it was a great send off to one of Cartoon Network's more successful shows about superheroes.
I would say you could argue outside of maybe Justice League Unlimited. Maybe? Would you argue that Justice League Unlimited was more successful than this?
I did not watch a lick of Justice League Unlimited.
I don't know. I feel like this is the peak, really, for DC and the means of cartoons. And I don't know if I necessarily can put another show above it at the moment. But yeah, this was definitely... You hate to think of this as a send-off, but if you are going to send a series off, at least this is a good way to do it.
Yeah, most shows don't even get a good finale at all, much less a movie. So the Teen Titans kind of got out clean.
Yeah, well, it's complicated, though, because the movie technically wasn't even a true end. It just, the way that over time that it's happened, it can satisfy the need for that end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you watch it, it clearly is one of those things where it's not necessarily the end. You know what I mean? They could have done more with which I wish would have happened, but
I mean, some would say this movie closed the doors. Some would say it opened them for something new in the future.
Except for when that something new was Teen Titans Go, which never existed.
Yeah, I know you hate this series.
Guys, if you ever just want to get me on a rant, just tell me Teen Titans Go is actually good, and I will go absolutely bonkers.
Overall, what do you rate the series itself?
Oh, we're gonna go Raider now. So. This series, really, I haven't never enjoyed a cartoon, at least in the West, as much as I had Teen Titans. And I don't think that's really ever going to change, especially with how the new medium is for Western cartoons and whatnot. I really don't see anything that would potentially top that or even come close to it. With that being said, I can't be as super heavily biased, but just because this was such a large part of my childhood. And, of course, the last 2 seasons did struggle. In the means of its story a little bit, fell off a little bit. So with that being said, though, it's still I would say it's one of the Warner Brothers' just best cartoons it's ever done. and it's definitely one of the best DC cartoons ever. So with that being said, I'm gonna give it a 9.1.
Okay, that's fair. If you'd asked like 7-year-old me, that's how old I was when this first came out, I probably would have given it like a decent 2 out of 10 because I wasn't really into it too much. I was watching Cartoon Network, but like I wasn't too into DC or superheroes in general. That's changed over the course of my life, obviously. So now I'll probably give it a decent, probably 8.9 out of 10 because there were some moments where like I probably could have skipped over like not the more deep stuff like the episode Haunted. That really hooked me in, but like I don't know, like maybe how they executed Raven in like I think it was the middle of the series in general.
Yeah, no, and that's something else that you got to keep in mind is as good of a show as this is, it does have its flaws, and some of them are bigger than others. But in the end of the day, this is something we'll never see a cartoon quite like this again, unless they bring it back for Adult Swim in a proper way. Adult Swim, please. Anyways, yeah, that's it's one of those things we're never gonna see something like this again.
Definitely not.
But it's definitely one that needs to be appreciated and one that you definitely gonna remember. But with that being said, though, of course, that's the end of this episode. Of course, I don't know when we're gonna come back because we're gonna be missing our partner in crime. But anyways,
oh, you're not gonna call me your boy Wonder?
Oh, you're my Robin. Oh, good. There we go. That's a good name drop there, right? Good drop. Anyways, just to give you guys a quick schedule, of course, we do have the BAM show still going on. That will be coming up probably, I don't know when you guys are going to see it. Hopefully Thursday night. That's when we're going to try to aim for. But, of course, this has been the MC show. I'm Christian Mott.
I'm Chance Henderson.
And we're out of here. Peace.